Hey guys, it's Jessica here. For today's video, I am going to be talking about 10 things that Filipinos should not do when you're traveling here in Korea. It's banned in Korea. Besso. Psst. Spill out, please. Boy, that could be considered very rude. Koreans are very racist. However, I'm not necessarily saying that you should not do this at all, like it's banned in Korea or something like it. I would just like to talk about some of the etiquettes or cultural norms in Korea that are very normal for us Koreans, but may not be for some foreigners, especially Filipinos. As you guys all know, I've lived in the Philippines for about 9 years, so I am very familiar with the cultural norms in both the Philippines and in Korea. So I decided to make this video to talk about all these differences between both countries' cultures, and also for this to serve as a casual travel guide if ever you plan to come to Korea soon after this pandemic. So without further ado, let's just get started right away. The first thing I like to talk about is Claygo, or clean as you go. I've heard the term Claygo a lot when I was going to an elementary school in the Philippines, in LaSalle to be specific. In the school canteen, it said Claygo, clean as you go. This is something that I mentioned in the video that I made a long time ago, entitled My Culture Shocks in the Philippines as a Korean. I've never seen someone who actually throws or bring back the dishes or the cups. I mentioned how in fast food chains in the Philippines like McDonald's, Jollibee, or cafes like coffee shops, Starbucks, and so on, many people do not give back the tray or the trash that they've made after they ordered the food. And I know the reason for that is because in those restaurants or cafes, workers are available whose job includes cleaning up tables. But in Korea, it is a norm that you do it by yourself. And you even have to segregate all the trash, like according to plastic, food waste, paper, etc. This is also because of the 빨리빨리 or fast, quickly culture in Korea, where they want things to be done as quickly and cleanly and surely as possible. So yeah, it is very normal for us to do that in Korea. So that was one. The second one off the list is know your trash. So in Korea, you'll be able to see a lot of different trash bins within the country, like in the public streets or something. You all know the zero waste campaign that's been a global thing nowadays. So it's very important to recycle and segregate trash properly. So in every Korean household, like in an apartment, for example, on the first floor, there is the recycling or segregation area where there are very specific divisions on where you should put each trash. So I don't think this would be that relevant if you're going to be staying in a hotel if you come to Korea, but if you decide to stay at an Airbnb or a typical Korean household, this is something that you should be mindful of as well. Number 3, I doubt that Filipinos would do this in Korea, but waving or doing besso. For both waving and doing besso, honestly, it depends on the person you're talking to. If you are to meet your longtime Korean friend, or if you are trying to meet Koreans who have lived abroad or something, maybe this is something that could happen very naturally. They might even love it. But for typical Koreans, like Koreans, doing besso would be very awkward. As you all know, how we say hi in Korea is 안녕하세요. Let's say you walk into a certain Korean restaurant and you be like, hi, or like 안녕하세요. That could be considered very rude. But again, things are also slowly changing in Korea. Waving hi or even hugging before you say goodbye is also a pretty casual and natural thing, I would say, especially among younger generations. Personally, when I first went to the Philippines and some of my friends did besso to me, I was very culture shocked. But now I love besso. I do besso to my friends, to my titas and even titos. Fourth one on the list is psst, psst, and hoy. So in the Philippines, as you all know, it's a kind of like a slang to say hoy, to call someone. But trust me, if you ever do that to call some stranger in Korea or something, they will look at you really weird. Because when I first went to the Philippines and someone called me psst, honestly, I felt bad. Like, I thought it was rude. But of course now I'm very much used to it. You know, my friends do that to me like a joke. In general, to call someone, it's most respectful to say 저기. 저기 is not a full sentence, but 저기요 would be the correct way of saying it. But depending on how you call them, like 저기요, 저기요, 저기요. Depending on how you say it, it might sound rude. I know it's very hard to pick up that accent, so you don't really have to mind it because people will definitely understand that you are a foreigner. They will most probably just appreciate you for trying to speak the Korean language rather than just approaching them, hey, excuse me. The fifth one on the list is I was really shocked when I first went to the Philippines and saw people like doing it. Now, that is one Filipino trait that has become a part of me. But I remember a lot of my Korean friends, when they saw that habit of me trying to point things with my mouth, they were, what are you trying to do? So this mouth pointing technique or habit is called muso. I know in the Philippines they don't usually do it when you're with like elderlies because it can be a little rude, right? Even in the Philippines. So the same thing in Korea. This gesture can be, first of all, some people might not understand what it is. Second of all, they might find it rude. So when you want to point something or let someone look at something, please do this. You can also be pointing it if it's an object, but if it's people that you're trying to point, you shouldn't do that. Like, that's very rude. So the sixth one is Filipino time. It's also a sad fact that they can just casually say, oh, Filipinos are usually late. When it comes to transportation in Korea, the subways come exactly on time. So for example, in Seoul, there are many different subway lines. Like there are more than 12, I think. So there's a very specific time when they arrive in each of these stations on the list. And it's never late, it's never early, it's exactly on time. So if you be like, oh, the train's probably coming late. No, that's not gonna happen. Whenever you were to do something in Korea that starts at a certain time, usually it's going to happen either at that exact time or even earlier. It only happens late very occasionally, so I think that's something that you have to be mindful as well. Although, except for the movie schedules, it's very ironic. In Korea, everything's on time except the movie theater schedules. So let's say that the movie starts at 6 p.m. and you go there by 6 p.m., you will have to see like 10 minutes of ads. Unlike in the Philippines, in Philippine movie theaters, it starts exactly on time. So I think that's something that's very interesting. So yeah, just wanted to mention that. The seventh thing is saying, bill out please. Usually in Korea, when you go to a restaurant, fancy or not, they will give you the bill like as soon as you ordered something. You take the bill and you go to the counter, pay. I think the reason why we do this in Korea is also because of the 빨리빨리 culture, where they want the restaurant flow to circulate very fast. So when you're done eating, you go to the counter straight ahead, you pay, and then you leave. Number 8, it's something related to the transportation as well. When you take public transportation in Korea, there will always be separate seats for senior citizens, and there will be separate pink chairs for pregnant women as well. This, I would say, is something that's not so common in the Philippines. Like, I've never seen such a thing when I was using the Philippine transportation system, but I think I've seen a few when I was riding some buses in the Philippines. Like, the first few seats are prioritized for senior citizens. In Korea, even if there are no pregnant women or senior citizens around, you should still leave that seat blank. Number 9 is drinking etiquettes. So if ever you get to drink with some Korean people, there are a list of things that you should be mindful of, because the drinking culture in Korea is on another level. First of all, when you were to receive an alcohol from someone older than you, you have to do it like this, like with 2 hands. And you should only receive the alcohol when they offer you to. Like, you shouldn't like do it first when you're younger, and you should always wait for the older one to pour the alcohol for you. and then you do it for that person as well. And then when you tagay, your cup should be under his or hers. Finally, when you drink, you have to turn your head to the other side and then drink. Right, so we've come to the last one, and this is not a certain action that you should not do in Korea, but more like a kind of mindset I would like you to have. Many Filipinos, when they come to Korea, or many of you guys who have been to Korea, you guys tell me that Koreans are very racist. And of course, there are definitely racist people in Korea, I can tell. But the reason why some Koreans can be very awkward or can be looking at you weird is because they're new to that culture. As you all know, the Korean race, it's not diverse. So we are still not very used to different cultures around the world just because of that history that we have. Nowadays, things are slowly changing in Korea. People are more open to different diverse cultures around the world. It's just that they've never experienced it, but they can welcome it once you are more confident to share your side of the story. So please don't be shy. Please don't feel like I'm an alien in this country. Don't be scared. That's something that I just wanted to mention as the last thing. Alright guys, so those were the 10 things that I want you to do, or I think you should not do whenever you come to Korea in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it helped. Although we are still in the middle of the pandemic, we don't know when we will be able to travel freely around the world again, but for future travel plans, I hope this video helped. Let me know how you guys thought of this video in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye!